So my name is Roger Simons. I'm a director of a consulting company called TSA Management. At TSA we help government and private sector clients plan, develop, build, commission generally big bits of social infrastructure and transport infrastructure. So schools, hospitals, houses, big bits of train line, metro systems, airports. So generally building things, but my main role is very much up front working with government, working out what is a priority. So governments don't have unlimited funding, no different to St Peter's. You can't build everything you want, so we work out what is the most critical piece of infrastructure that would best serve the community. I started out as in a design perspective, so I started out as an architect, and architects did ultimately design things for people to live in and work in. But increasingly, what I really value is building pieces of infrastructure that people get to use and I suppose put a bit of value back into society. Worked on a very big hospital project on the Sunshine Coast. It's amazing to walk around it and see people living in it, being born in it, sadly dying in it. I spent a few days in it myself, which was unplanned. So it's actually that ability to give something that people can live and work in. Again, one of the attractions of what I do is no day is the same. There's often different challenges, but a typical day, so I lead a team of people. So generally it'll be catching up with the team, checking in with the team, making sure they know where they're going, if they've got any issues. Often checking in with the client to make sure we're on track with where they're going. And then for me, a lot of my work now, because of I suppose the seniority I'm at, is reviewing work, making sure that if there's a report going to a client, it's of sufficient quality. Often facilitating workshops, writing reports. I very rarely get out on site. Other people do more of the delivery. So it's very much that reviewing quality and consistency of what we're doing. So if I'd say there's three key stakeholders in all of our projects. There's ultimately the client who's paying your bills, so you've got to keep them on side. There's the team that's involved. It might be our team, it might be there might be a design team, there might be a legal team, there might be a financial team, keeping them on track. But ultimately as well, for big infrastructure projects, it's community. You'll see the politicians always playing to community. Anyone who watches Utopia will see how that works out. We spend a lot of time engaging with community to make sure that actually what we're delivering meets the community needs. I have an architecture degree and a master's in architecture, and I qualified as an architect, and I always say I practice as an architect, I just never got good enough at it. I realised that I enjoyed designing things, but there were people who are much better at designing buildings than me. What I really enjoyed was actually the whole process that goes around putting a project together. So maybe buying the land, hiring the contractor, yes, the design, but actually pulling all the pieces together was far more interesting to me than just designing it. And also, I still get to work with great designers, so I enjoy working with architects. I enjoy really good designers' work. Realised that I was never that good. So it's still useful in my day-to-day career, but it's certainly not what I do day-to-day. When I was practicing as an architect, I realised the sort of projects I wanted to work on. I went and saw a few organisations who said if you want to get into that space, you'll need something more than just architecture. You'll need a commercial degree or a finance degree or a law degree. And they pointed me in the direction of doing a law degree and then a master's in construction law. So having spent 7 years studying architecture, I then spent another 7 years, albeit part-time, studying law and construction law. Again, day to day, it's really useful to have that background because a lot of commercial issues in what we do, but again, I'm not a lawyer. So I've got two skill sets that I don't use, they just inform what I do. And you'll find a lot of people that work for us have got different backgrounds. They might have been an engineer and then they've changed direction, they've done finance. And I think increasingly, unless you're a doctor maybe or a vet, I think a single career for life is probably quite challenging now. I think you need to have a degree of flexibility. I think what I find most challenging, and my children will back me up with this, is I, at times, because I'm very motivated and driven, at times I find it frustrating when other members of the team don't seem to be running at the same pace. So that's probably what I find most difficult at times. What I find most rewarding is I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I get asked to review quite complex projects for risks, and actually just getting oversight of some really amazing projects to go in for 2 or 3 days, do a deep dive review and write a report, really fascinating. So to be involved in everything, say in Brisbane, Queen's Wharf, the new casino in Brisbane that's coming out of the ground, I spent 3 years planning that. So seeing that come out of the ground is amazing to see that actually what you've done is, that you're leaving a bit of a legacy. So that's really rewarding. If you look at pure design, a lot of that now is being more automated. But I think coming back to your original question, the ability to manage stakeholders, engage with stakeholders, manage teams, you can't take away, that can't be automated. You do need that personal knowledge and that skill set that comes with it. And the grey hair that comes with it and the experience that comes with it, I don't think you can train a machine to do that. So there's always going to be that management / leadership role. You have to be flexible. Clients believe that they can do a lot of those things themselves. So again, it's being realistic about each opportunity. Because money is, we don't have limited finances to develop everything we need. We have growing populations. I think it's about being clever with the way we use assets. And I'll use schools as an example. A school is built at a cost of tens of millions, and at the moment in Australia we're building lots of new schools because there's a big population growth. Those schools are only used for 40% of the year. So for 60% of the year there's an expensive building sitting doing nothing. What I think our industry is getting better at doing is actually saying, well, are there ways we can use schools differently for community facilities to maximise the use of assets? We're running out of space. We need to be more sustainable. People are looking at the ways of building things more efficiently, more effectively. COVID has impacted on that. Obviously, COVID means some of the stuff that we imported for some of our projects we can't import anymore, so we're now manufacturing it locally. So I think sustainability, and I mean not just environmental but social and economic sustainability, is critical, and I think there's some really bright people in our industry coming through looking at how we do things differently and how we use assets differently. If you can, I think there's a real rush to go and do a degree out of school. If you can, I would try and get some work experience in the sort of sectors that you think you might be interested in. I see so many people who start a degree and they realise it's not what they thought it was, or they get into a work environment and think, well, actually, this isn't what I wanted. I think the ability to stop and check yourself and go, actually, am I on the right path, and have the courage to say to your parents, actually, no, I thought I was going to do law, but I actually now want to do film making because that's what really interests me, I think is a really important piece of advice. But I do think that whole work experience piece is critical. When I did my architecture course, you do a degree in architecture, you have to work in an office for a year, and then you go back to do your master's. I actually took 2 years out, so I got another year under my belt, which really, really helped me finish my course, and also made me much more employable when I came out, because lots of people coming out of university are almost unemployable because they've got great academic skills but no work-life skills. So I would say don't rush into university would be my advice. And I base that not just on me, but a lot of people we employ who've stopped and checked the bus and gone, I'm going to change direction. And don't be afraid to change direction. I think the key thing is about being flexible. Just, reality that we are in a very changing world, and there are some amazing opportunities out there, and you just got to be a bit flexible about how you approach them. I think you recognise that you never stop learning. Anyone who says they know everything is deceiving themselves, and I think also, again, another piece of advice from a work environment, I would say, is never leave an employer on bad terms. It's a very, very small world out there, and it will bite you if you leave an employer on bad terms. And conversely, if you leave an employer on good terms, and then where you thought you were going doesn't work out, and this is what happened to me years ago in my career, I went back to that employer and said, I left you because I thought the grass was greener. Well, actually it wasn't greener, and I realised how much I miss working with you. Because I left on good terms, they took me back. If I'd left on bad terms, that door would have been closed. So.